morning, Bill. How are you this fine day?
Good morning, Otonka. I'm doing wonderful. What's the weather like over there?
Dark and cold tonight, Bill. It's absolutely freezing out there. Bit of a bitter wind.
Yeah, in California here, it's sunny but windy. It was foggy this morning. So what are we going to talk about today?
A social app environment, and I thought, well, it'd be good to talk about the different varieties of social apps out there, and then perhaps give us a score of 1 to 5 of what we think is good about them, and then obviously the negatives as well.
That sounds great. Which one would you like to start with?
Well, let's start with the very first one, Bill. As always, the first one would be the Oculus social app, which is in the Oculus store.
That's the one that you and I first met about a year ago.
It was indeed, Bill. Yes, it was. It was the first time. In fact, if I remember rightly, Bill, it was you and I were one of the first people to ever chat on there.
That is true. We only had a small group in those days, and you could go into the app just about any time of day and there was no one there. Fortunately, it's gotten a lot better, a lot more people.
It has, and there's been I don't know if you're actually aware of it, Bill, there's been a bit of an improvement to it, as in they have now a trivia room for answering trivia questions.
Yeah, I am aware of it. I've never tried it. We used that, for 4, 5, 6 months before we moved on to Converge?
We did. It was a good app, but then of course once they started allowing this more to the public's view, then we tended to get more trolls in, and I think we both got sick of the trolls and the crashes on that particular system. So then we went over to Converge, which was, in my opinion, far more stable, and certainly we didn't get any trolls in that particular environment at the time, if you remember well.
Yes, I did. I did like the different environments, that program had been around over a year when you and I first went in there. Before they put it on Gear VR, they had it on PC and they had it on Oculus Rift DK1. When the DK1 first came out, I used that to get on Converge.
It was a shame, Bill, that it went, because it gave you the ability to eat. Oh, if you remember, it gave you the ability to eat mushrooms. You could fight each other with swords, and at one point, I'm led to believe you could even walk around in the environment. It was the first walkabout environment was available for any social app or any movement in it.
Yeah, when I first went onto it with the DK1 headset, they had a forest environment, and they used to have group meetings where multiple people would go and walk around the forest, and they'd have a big movie screen, and they'd put on, people like Palmer Luckey would do a talk, and it was really quite good. But then when they ported it over to the Gear VR headset, it just required too much computing power, so they had to tone it down and get rid of the group setting.
Very good app. It had a lot of potential, and then it just ceased to be, which is a real shame, because it's a shame to the VR community now that it's gone. I'm sort of hoping, Bill, that it will come back eventually, maybe in a different format, but they will still produce another one and bring it back on board again.
Yeah, me too. So where did we go from there?
From there, we went over to, in fact, actually, Bill, where we are now, actually, V-Time.
Could you tell us a little bit about V-Time?
V-Time in its very early stages was very buggy. It had the best apps, best apps. Oh, there we go. It had the best quality graphics. But what let the actual program down was the sound quality. The sound quality was absolutely appalling. If you remember the very early days when we first got on board, we'd get that sort of robotic tone where we'd come in and we'd start talking, and all you could hear was and you couldn't hold a conversation, which was really frustrating. I know what I wrote to the developers back in those days, and I said to them, look, this is just not on, this is just not good. And I got a very good response from Hollywood, Vicky, and a couple of the other guys there. And the next thing I know, within a state of probably less than a month, they'd actually fixed the issue, which was absolutely amazing.
Now they have more than one environment in V-Time. This is the second one we've been into. This is called Orbit, and you're orbiting the Earth, and a space shuttle comes in and lands. You can hear conversations in the background. But then each week, I think we were going to have our weekly talk in a different environment to make it a little more interesting.
We are indeed, yes. We are going to change it every week to make it a little bit different, to give an experience of what it's like in V time. Not that we're here to promote V time, but we just think it's I personally think it's one of the best social apps for communicating. And I think it's a bit like us, Bill. We've started very new at doing what we're doing with these particular shows that we're doing. And V Time are pretty similar. They're starting new and they're expanding. They're getting better and better as they progress. And it's a bit like us. I think that us and V Time have a lot in common. Is that we're on a learning curve and we're improving as we go along.
There's another app out there called AltSpace. Can you explain that?
The bane of my life, AltSpace. AltSpace. When I first heard about AltSpace, I was told that it had the ability to move around. You could do this, you could do that and the other. Now I know that it was originally, I believe, working on the DK2, DK1, and my first impression before I even came onto the app was that this is going to be a very bad app for socialising. Yes, you're going to be able to go into a room and talk to people, but because you have the ability to move, you're going to be getting people going all over the place, people jumping into the conversations, jumping out. It was going to allow for a lot of more trolls. Luckily enough, so far, I've heard there's not so many trolls on that particular app. But holding a conversation in AltSpace is still very difficult because, you know, people just want to zip off and run around, see the different environments. So actually socialising, it's taken a lot away from it. Where with V Time, we're stuck in a position where we have to talk. We can't go zipping anywhere. We have to just stay stagnated and talk, which is what we do in our own houses. In AltSpace, because you can run around, you do run around. And then, of course, it sort of takes away the social aspect, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. They have different types of avatars, but every time they come out with an upgrade, it seems to have bugs in it, and it takes them a few weeks to work it out. That's what I like about V Time. When they come out with an update, it works. There's no bugs, and I really appreciate that because you and I get on V Time quite a bit. There's another one out there. Called VR Chat. Have you ever been on that?
Bill, it's the first time I've ever heard of VR Chat. What is it? Could you tell us a bit about this? Because that's something I don't know anything about.
Yeah, VR Chat's been around about as long as AltSpace. It kind of specializes, it's more for developers that want to develop their own avatars. There's some awesome avatars that people have spent time developing, and also they work with a lot of the people that use that app are developers, and they develop their own locations like this, and they get pretty elaborate with that, and then they have a meeting, and they invite everybody to come and look at their new location, and it's a high-end program. It's not for your average user. It's more for developers of apps and people that like to make avatars. They get some of those people. The avatars that they've come up with are just wonderful. I mean, they're fantastic.
If I wanted to go onto that particular app, Bill, is it for the Gear VR? Do I have to go to a website to get it, or is it on the Oculus Store, or like Sideload VR? Is it? Where would you actually get hold of the app?
Unfortunately, it doesn't work with Gear VR. It only works with Oculus and I think the Vive. You can download it from the Oculus
but not
store.
for the Gear VR. Okay, that's something then I probably won't venture into until I get my Oculus and my Vive, which will be happening at some point this century, possibly, if they bring down the prices.
There's a new thing I just read about, and I'd like to tell you about it. I'm going to show the folks here a little bit about. We're sitting here in space, and where I'm looking now is at the Earth, and the Earth is turning, and if you stay in here long enough, it'll go all the way around. We're coming up on, we're on South America if you look down to the lower left, and then there's Central America, and then up high is North America. You can see Florida and Cuba and Haiti. So this is an amazing view here. And I just wanted the people to be able to see this because this is available for the Gear VR. And it's just a wonderful program, V-Time. And then over to my right is the moon and the rest of the space station. And I'm not going to turn around completely because there's just space behind us. I think you're looking at space now. Is there anything interesting back there?
No, apart from the different lights, Bill. Where I'm looking now, I'm no spacey person. I don't really know much about space, but I'm looking at this sort of like white fluffy cloud effect in the sky, and it is absolute stunning. And occasionally, as I'm looking, I'll see the odd meteorite or dust particle go flying by, hitting the light, and it's just so stunning, Bill. It's breathtaking, to be honest.
Yeah, and then here comes a space shuttle. I think he's going to fly right over the top of us, or either that or he's going to land. I'm not sure. Yeah, here he goes, right over the top of us. Wow, amazing, just amazing. Anyway, I wanted to tell you about a new thing I heard about today.
Oh, tell me.
I have to put my glasses on, my friend. Portation. Portation is something that was invented by Microsoft for their HoloLens head mount display. And what you do with Portation is you have a person somewhere in the world that has a headset on, and it basically films their character, and then you import, and it's live, and you import it into your hologram and place it in your field of view, and you can talk to that person, you can walk around with that person. You can't touch each other, you can't feel each other touch, but that person can be anywhere in the world, and they're a hologram in front of you, and they're live, and it's just fantastic, and I can't wait for that to come on to where the average consumer can afford a HoloLens and that program, because that means people can see their children, even though they might live thousands of miles away. They can talk with them live and see what they look like today and what they're wearing. So I think that's the future.
I think you're right, Bill. I think that is the future. And that is something that I cannot wait for. That's something that I've been looking forward to for many years. Many years ago it was a dream, and now it's becoming reality. And this is the beauty of VR. It's bringing what was once a dream into reality, which we never thought it would. And it's just, I just, Bill, if I can live another 50 years, if I could just live another 50 years, I would be absolutely amazed at what the world's going to be like in 50 years with this new technology that's coming on.
Yeah, I agree with you. Otonka, I think it's just about time for us to say goodbye, though, for this week.
It is, Bill, sadly. And it is sad. It's always sad to do these and then have to run. But you and I both have busy lives. So, yeah. Do you have any words of wisdom for us this week, Bill, that we can give to the viewers?
Well, let's see. Otonka, do you know why the chicken crossed the road?
No, Bill. Why did the chicken cross the road?
He didn't. He got hit by a truck. Stupid chicken.
Oh, God, Bill. With that, I'm going. You take care, my friend. You have a great day, and we shall catch you next week, I believe.
Okay, and you too, my friend. Good night, Otonka.